together again. Together always. We'll take a few moments to just let everybody arrive and settle in. I hope you are well. I hope you're doing the best that you can be doing right now. Things may be looking up. Once you choose to show up, to arrive, just smartly approach a seat that you can settle into for, 20 minutes, half hour at the most. If you've got that time, right? You can always just pop in and leave whenever. A lot of you do this later, right? When you have the time. It's all good. I think it's very important to just remind ourselves that there's no right or wrong to this practice. Good morning, good afternoon. I think it's important to remind ourselves again and again and again, because we're a little thick in the skull. We're a little thick in the skull. To remind ourselves again and again that there is no right or wrong to this, so-called practice, and to really allow that word practice to free us, to liberate us, to take the confines and the kind of restrictions out and the rules out, and just something that you choose to do perhaps every day, right? Day in and day out, again and again, without trying to get anything right. That you could, sit better today than you did yesterday, and if you can't, that you failed the practice, right? It's really just the guts to show up. That's the hardest part, the willingness to show up and just see what's there. And then, all of us holding space to just permit whatever comes through. Sometimes it's like ridiculously random and not very interesting. Sometimes it's super blasé and blank. Right? If that occurs for you when you actually take the time to sit, don't panic or think that it should be something else. Some days it's very difficult just to sit at all if you have like a lot of anxiety or things concerning you that can so easily plague the body and the mind and create a bit of anxious paralysis, if you will. Such an interesting kind of dichotomy, anxious paralysis. So, whatever it is, we just embrace it, and that's challenging. It's really challenging to be like, okay, whatever shows up today is what I'm going to sit in and with. But anyway, it comes down to not going to any lofty assumptions that something quite special and extraordinary should be happening. I mean, the special and the speciality and the extraordinary experience comes from your willingness just to embrace this incredibly interesting time that we're living in. It's nice to notice that, some of it is quite good, right? It certainly is not all bad, right? As the political system starts to shift quite dramatically, and as we start to crawl our way out of this very deeply devastating pandemic, very slowly, you can have a greater look and notice that it might not all be so bad. Clearing out enough space inside the internal perception scale, if you will, starts to even out. We start to perceive things with greater spaciousness, just like a little bit more distance, if you will. Less clamor, less clutter. And from that spaciousness, we might gain greater perspective and have a broader view, a wider look, a greater range in what we see. It's like, oh, okay, some of it's not so bad, the days are getting longer, right? More light. Our willingness to just see the whole thing, not just that one little piece that we're stuck on, right? So let's take a few moments to tune in together. Please feel free to send me a little message in the chat. I'd love to see who's with me in live time. And you can also send message later if you're doing the sit, on your own time. Please feel free to leave us a message. Yeah. And breathe in. Namaste. Hi, Liz. I'm happy for you and your little venture. Blessings. So I feel like I haven't had the formality of sitting with you guys. It seems like forever. As I look back, I realized Friday was a holiday and I wasn't on. And then Monday I had an issue here at the studio that I had to deal with, that I had to tend to, and I wasn't able to be present. So I'm very happy to, hi Chrissy, welcome back. I'm very happy to be with you guys again. I'm always here with you, right? I'm always here with you. We're always here together, but in its formality. I think what I'll share with you briefly before we do our breath work is Monday. The reason why I wasn't with you guys is this beautiful building that is coming on 100 years. 100 years. So much history. Beautiful test of steadfastness, if you will, sturdiness. But I recently, not recently, I discovered a leak in the ceiling of this beautiful building some time ago, and I didn't address it as quickly as I, in quote, should have, And those of you that own buildings, like, it's so important, right, that as soon as you see something happening that you address it so it doesn't become a bigger problem. It's kind of like with your teeth, right? Like the minute you sense that cavity, you should march yourself into the dentist office and get it taken care of, because it will be, less extensive, less invasive, less expensive, right? And the longer you wait, the more it just kind of builds in the problem, and then the more you need to do to rectify it. So, same with this building, with the building. And as I noticed the leak, coupled with pandemic, I was just like, that's just too much to deal with. I'm just not gonna go there. And, luckily, of course, because I I own public space, if you will. Like, I have to be responsible for the people and their safety as they come in, but luckily nobody's been in here, it's other than me. And as the months have gone on, the leak has gotten a little bigger, and unfortunately now there's some serious damage in our gorgeous, I don't know if your screen shows it, but our beautiful ceiling of this 100-year-old building. So, that's because I waited too long, right? And it's so easy to get now in the punishing judgmental phase, like, you knew better, why did you wait so long? And at the time I just wasn't ready to deal with it, as I was putting my primary focus into just helping us sit and navigate these very difficult times that we're in. It seemed like it would be too much for me to deal with that. So I waited, and needless to say, the problem has gotten much worse, and if I had nipped it in the bud, it would have been a very simple job, and now it's a far more complicated job. And I've been noticing the last day or so, as I've had some very supportive workers in here that are willing to take on this job and give me the assistance that I need in fixing it. I noticed that I'm not beating myself up so much for waiting. That I was like, well, I cut myself some slack. Hi, thank you for the thumbs up. I'm glad that they don't have one of these. Right? So I cut myself some slack in the realization that I waited too long. I procrastinated. I didn't want to go there. Okay, so where I'm going with this is, my goodness, ain't that similar to your own practice? Right? How often do we skirt the issue? How often do we want to just run away? How often do we want to just put it, plate it, what's the expression? Table it and deal with it later, right? And how often, when the problem gets big enough, that's when we have to deal with it, that we do deal with it. And if you were to kind of rewind the roll tape of your existence and kind of the filmic journey that you are on so beautifully, you'll probably notice that the very thing that brought you to your, in quote, practice, whatever that is, perhaps it's this here and now, perhaps it was with us at some point, perhaps elsewhere, but if you rewind, you'll probably notice, more than likely, if we were all to take a big vote right now, we go, oh yeah, it was something fairly tragic that brought me to my own healing, my own willingness to embrace how far I let it go. When you think about the times in your life, because this comes up with me all the time, people share very, very intimately and of course very privately, their personal history and the difficulty and the very thing that got them to the mat the first time. But then those challenges that they meet every single time that they want to come to the mat, but somehow don't, because it's kind of it could be a little uncomfortable. It's a little difficult to face these things. In this case, for me now to face the mess that I've created in this gorgeous ceiling, right? Because I wasn't ready to take care of it. And then the day came where it rained a lot and the water came in more and more and more. I was like, I have to address this. I can't wait any longer. This situation needs help. This situation might be bigger than me. So I think the point of why I'm sharing this with you is because I encourage you to kind of wrap your arms around yourself, support yourself in the process, parent yourself, partner up to yourself, especially when you notice you've waited too long to address something. The time is when it happens, it happens. Like, we don't have to force it or rush it. But every time you notice that you're kind of procrastinating and like, you know, wanting to get away from it rather than just kind of deal with it, heal and deal, I used to say when we were together here. I want you to consider being really kind to yourself and just understand that that's human tendency. Like, we just sometimes can't, and then all of a sudden we can, right? And maybe this is the moment where you realize you can, right? But take the punishment out. Take the judgment out. And that's how we can start to approach our lives with more compassion and therefore eventually more healing, right? We're doing the healing, right? In the case of the sealing, like, you know, yes, I had to call somebody for assistance, but it also was that I was ready to kind of admit it and face it and deal with it, right? And therein lies the healing, right? When you're ready, right? When you're ready. But let's not keep ourselves away from the healing because of the lofty grandeurs of like, we have to be a certain way, we have to get something right, we have to do something right, right? This is just you. What happens to be us, right? And we all have vulnerabilities, we all have flaws, we all have strength. We all have the wherewithal. It just shows up at different times for each and every one of us. So we can, you know, really sit beside our personal difficulties, our small t traumas, or even our large t traumas. Partner up to them in such a way that you know you're ready to deal with them, like when the time is right. And there's no, you know, clock saying, okay, ready, set, go now, and deep punishment if you're not there and ready yet, right? This is your path and your journey. And know that sometimes you're gonna like wanna be like this, like go over there, I don't wanna deal with that right now. And you're not alone in that, right? I've been doing this work a long time, right? I've been doing this work a long time, practicing it day in and day out. And I humbly admit, I was not ready to deal with that big mess in my ceiling. And, you know, now it's a bigger mess and I have to deal with it. But rather than wasting time punishing myself for I should have done it sooner, I should have acted better, like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. It took me this long to get here, so what, right? Now I'm ready, right? So we don't want to deprive ourselves of those light bulb moments of, oh, now I'm ready. I just wasn't ready before, right? Breathe in through your nose. Out through your mouth. Again. Let's do one more. Drop your body down into the support of the earth. Drop your body down into the support of the earth. Release some of your personal hold. Sense the hips descending. The towel dropping. The thighs heavying. And the inner hips softening. And just give yourself some time here to sit in your own readiness or your own not readiness, your own apprehension, your own procrastination, whatever it is. Just let yourself sit in it, right? There's no rule on what this has to be or what you have to feel or find. want you to back it up when you notice, I'm ready, or I'm not ready. I want you to back it up. I want you to embrace yourself as you locate that awareness. Partner up to yourself. As your hips continue to descend down, and dropping into your seat, dropping into you. Slowly start to raise the waist, simply to make more space to breathe in the midsection of the body. As you raise the waist, let your chest float on the heavy base of your hips. Sensing some airspace through the lungs, collar, and chest. And dissolving the judgment and the punishment. Opening yourself simply up to you right here and right now. Authentic, raw, and real. No rules. And permit yourself to be present with whatever thought or sensation, feeling, or mood is occurring. Notice your current readiness without attaching to it, without evaluating it. Going a little deeper into the breath, softening through the underbelly, the ribs, and the chest. Observe the give of the ribs as your breath moves through your midsection. Loosening through the cartilage and the internal fibers of you. Breaking free of the confines of the rules and regulations that only cage us in. Perhaps gently coaxing and nudging yourself into your own personal readiness to sit in awareness. And watch that breath as it moves from the belly to the chest on the inhale. Chest to the belly on the exhale. Nothing has to happen. You don't have to see anything special. Try not to set it up before it's happened. Just simply observe the breath as it moves inside you. And you know, maybe that's it. Maybe that's all we can handle today, and maybe that's enough. If you care to practice pranayama, the expansion of our breath capacity, I encourage you to move slowly and experience the breath as it passes through the body. And try not to make this a rigid regimen, but rather just a gentle observance. Empty the breath from the underbelly. Slowly Breathe in. Gently retain in. Gradually breathe out. And gently retain. Breathe in. Draw the belly in, hold the breath lightly. Breathe out. Draw the belly in, hold the breath lightly. Breathe in. Retain. And breathe out. Retain. And breathe in. Retain. And breathe out. Retain. Release the lock of the belly. Let the breath go, let it flow, move your body. Experience the breath, allowing that breath to free us, to liberate us, dissolving our judgment and our critical minds. And sitting in your breath, allowing it to soothe and pacify any internal dialogue that comes up in such a way that we could just simply be present. Just simply be present. There are no shoulds. Just the presence of this moment. And gift yourself the experience of it. It's so simple. It's so easy to miss. Hold space for each other so that we don't miss it. A few moments here. Folding the hands gently to the center of the heart, taking a moment of gratitude for this sit. And breathe in. Namaste. So as I was saying earlier, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of very intimate conversations with people that are on the quote path, if you will, some sort of practice, some sort of willingness to heal and be well. And I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, I want to come back, I strayed, this happened and that happened, life, basic circumstances happen, and I really want to come back, and I know it's good for me, and why haven't I done it yet? And they just spend so much time beating themselves up and kind of like this perpetual state of judgment for their neglect. And I always just say, you're going to know when the time is right. But sometimes I think they imprison themselves and they punish themselves longer, like because they know better, right? They know the practice will help them, whatever form it is, just being around community or doing some sitting work or doing some breath work or physical practice or chanting, what have you. Like, I think we all can get caught in the web of we know better, right? Like, I knew that was going to be a problem. I knew better. Like, I should have addressed it sooner, but for whatever reason, like I said earlier, I just wasn't ready. So then you have a choice, like, where are you going to put your energy? Like, in the beating yourself up for what you didn't do and what you haven't done, because all that's going to do is lock you in further, imprison you more greatly, right? Create more cement internally, instead of, all right, I guess I just wasn't ready at that moment in time. And that's when we go, oh, I'm ready now. I'm ready now, right? Because we lift the pressure off what the experience should be, or how we should, walk through life as robots, as perfect as possible, right? So we dissolve the judgments on the knowing better, right? And spend less time punishing ourselves and more time permitting ourselves to go into that readiness. Have a beautiful day, or at least the best day that you can have today, with all the components that are occurring in your world, some good, some bad, I'm sure. Christina's put some info up on where you can find me next, where you can find us next. This evening we'll be doing a yin practice. I brought Yin into the studio recently and into the Zoom experience recently because I've noticed that we need it. So yin is the practice of softening, surrendering, of not putting pressure on oneself to always be going. And we start to realize that the opposite of the going is the just being. So we're going to take time tonight to just be. Let's seal it, let's send it. We always have something to give, guys. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with an easy heart. Namaste.